All right, we're going to get going. It is 11 o'clock Pacific time. Welcome to today's webinar. We're doing this on our top 5 retention strategies for in-person workplaces. Over the course of the pandemic, we've done lots of webinars and we've talked about remote work and all these strategies for hybrid and remote work. But what about those organizations that can't be hybrid or remote and have to be in person? What strategies are there for them? So I brought a couple of my great colleagues on, and we're going to discuss all the strategies. So a couple of housekeeping items before I do an introduction for our speakers today. This presentation is probably about 25 minutes, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. So we've scheduled this for a 45-minute, but if we get done earlier, we get done earlier. The session will be recorded and available on demand following the session. So if you have to bounce or you love this content and you want to be able to share it with colleagues or your leadership team, you're going to have all the materials and you're welcome to do that. And of course, we've got tons of on-demand content at xeniumhr.com/blog. You'll find videos and podcasts and expert articles and micro videos. And of course, you can also find all of our training and development resources and e-learning courses there as well. Okay, I am excited to introduce Lacey Partipillow and Nicole Blevins. Lacey is our Senior Director of Client Success. So if you are a Xenium client, it's likely you've interacted with her, and she's been doing podcasting with me and tons of other webinars like this over the years. So Lacey, welcome, and it's good to have you. Nicole Blevins is our HR Services Training Manager. She is an amazing resource for us. She also has been doing a lot of podcasts with us, and I think this might be your first webinar, right, Nicole?
I think so, yeah, with you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited to have you, and I think we'll get into it with our top 5 strategies. And I think, Nicole, you're sharing the first one.
I am, yeah. So first strategy that we have is to really talk about compensation and benefits, because the ability to retain and motivate your employees in a traditional office setting really hinges significantly on the compensation and benefits package that you offer. And so you really want to be able to answer, what does your organization offer or bring to the table for your employees when it comes to compensation and benefits? And so we have a few considerations here regarding that on the next slide. And the first one is really to be able to design a compensation package that motivates and aligns with your employees' efforts. So a well-structured compensation package is really going to motivate your employees to perform at their best. And so when employees feel that the financial rewards that they're receiving align with their efforts, they're more likely to be engaged, productive, and just overall committed to the organization's success, which we really want to drive. And so a way that you can ensure that your compensation package is motivating to your employees is to do a compensation study. So this is something that Xenium does for our clients a lot, is offering compensation studies that's going to do a market analysis and look at, what does your current wage scale look like compared to what other people in your industry are playing in the market? So you can really make sure that it's competitive and you're looking at that wage data on some type of regular cadence to ensure that it's competitive and meeting the needs of your employees. Another way that you can kind of design a compensation package that's going to be motivating is to survey your employees. Ask them, what compensation and benefits do they value? How can you strengthen your compensation program? And doing that in an employee survey format makes employees feel heard, listened to, and really takes the guesswork out of things, right? You don't have to guess what your employees value or what's going to motivate them, because you can ask them directly, and that can feel really great for the employees too, knowing that you want their input so you can design a competitive compensation program. And then the other thing I would say is design incentives for in-office employees. So I really think here, like, what are the things that people enjoy about remote work, right? Is it that they can get up and grab snacks from their fridge easily when they're working from home? Is it the flexibility or just comfortable environment that they're in? And so you want to think about those things and then design comparable incentives for an in-office workplace. So that could look like having office lunches or snacks, right, available to people. It could be offering retention bonuses. I know that's something that happened a lot during COVID or the Great Resignation that happened. You know, employers were wanting to incentivize employees for staying or being in that in-office setting. Hazard pay was another one that came up a lot, is when we have employees that have to remain in office, is there other incentives that we can be providing them? Or it could just be other incentives such as local gym reimbursements, right? Or commuter benefits for those that are having to come into an in-office space, or parking reimbursements, or other type of incentives or reimbursements that support a more in-office employee workplace. And so kind of in conclusion, what I want to share about this first strategy regarding compensation is that really a competitive compensation package clearly demonstrates your company's recognition for your employees' skills and contributions, and just reinforces the message that their dedication and hard work is valued, which creates that sense of loyalty and commitment. And so when employees have multiple options that they can pursue, offering that competitive compensation package is really key to retaining your top talent, especially when your workforce is not able to provide that direct flexibility of remote work. An enticing compensation package becomes a crucial competitive advantage. So that's what I'd leave you with about this first strategy on compensation. And I'll hand it over to Lacey to talk about our next strategy.
Thanks, Nicole. So career development is our next strategy. And this one is really near and dear to my heart. I think I'm maybe on my 8th position here at Xenium. So I've had lots of opportunities to career path. And I think, you know, it's an important factor that all organizations should really be thinking about, but particularly for those folks that can't offer the benefit of that remote work, this is an interesting thing to focus on. So the first thing that I think we start with is just, what do employees want to be when they grow up? So thinking about their career goals and really trying to understand what those aspirations are and their goals within the organization. Sometimes that actually looks like they may have goals to leave the organization, to do things that are beyond the scope of what your business does. And those are things that we should be thinking about and helping employees build those skill sets. I think it's important to show the value of the work that they're doing, the goals that they're setting, and how that connects to the organization's vision. So we talk about this younger generation of workers coming into the workforce. Super important for them to understand, how is the stuff that I'm doing today, the tactical day-to-day work, how is that actually impacting my organization as a whole, maybe the industry, even the community? So really creating that sense of purpose and motivation is meaningful. I think we also help people career path by giving regular performance feedback. So employees that get regular feedback rate themselves as more engaged, even employees who are receiving constructive feedback. So whether you're building like an annual performance review system, or you're doing that more informal, frequent feedback, or a combination of both, feedback really provides employees with insights into what they're really great at and maybe what they need to work on. So I think employers should really be focusing on training managers and making sure that all employees across the organization know how to give and receive feedback during their evaluations. The next area is thinking about training and skill enhancement. So how do we provide employees with the skills that they need for the job that they're in today and the jobs of the future? So we think about succession planning and all of this talent that's going to be leaving the organization as folks retire, making sure that the folks that you have in-house that are going to be career pathing through your organization, they have that training. So you're building out training plans, creating workshops for employees, really documenting processes so that we can train employees up in the roles that they're in. I think it's important too to showcase how employees have grown up within the organization. So we have a lot of that here at Xenium. We have a lot of folks that have had a story like mine where they've had the opportunity to career path. And I think by sharing that story with folks that are new to the organization, that can create a sense of belonging and enthusiasm, I think, even for the role that they're in maybe today. You can also offer shadowing opportunities so that folks can see different roles within the company, or maybe a shadowing opportunity to see the job maybe above the position that they're in. You've got to create career paths. So we have to know where we are today and what the next position might be for me. So Employees want to have a really clear understanding of what that career trajectory is. And again, sharing those success stories of people that have been in the job that they're in and maybe the positions that they've had the opportunity to move through. We've got to provide mentorship and coaching. So that might look like, creating a mentorship program where we're pairing experienced employees with folks that are looking to grow. It's actually really rewarding to be that mentor for an employee who's up and coming in an organization. It actually gives folks an opportunity to stretch their leadership skills too. So think about those high performing employees that maybe aren't quite in a leadership position, but those folks could be, individuals within your organization that could really benefit themselves even from that mentorship. Mentorship does have a really big impact on career development. It's not just the supervisor's role to help employees' career path through the organization. So I think this is a really important topic. And as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about it because I've benefited from this opportunity. So let's talk about the next strategy, recognition and appreciation. We know how important this is. Recognition and appreciation actually really has a big impact on employee engagement and motivation. And we know that highly engaged employees actually perform better. So if you think about your customers that you have in your organization, if we actually do a good job of recognizing and rewarding employees, we know that our customers are going to benefit from that. There's psychological benefits actually to showing how recognition positively affects job satisfaction and performance. When employees are receiving positive feedback and recognition, they get motivated, they understand how the work that they're doing today actually connects to the greater good of the organization, and acknowledging their work really can reinforce that sense of purpose, helps people want to move up and excel in the organization. It can boost their self-esteem and self-worth. When we know that our contributions are acknowledged, we feel valuable and we feel confident in our role. That can actually help and feed into that career pathing and a desire to learn more and maybe stretch myself beyond what I'm doing today. And we know that many organizations are having to do more with less. Some of our clients that we're working with are having to do reductions in headcount. Folks got a little overstaffed during COVID because of just the way that the market was, and folks are having to right size. So that might mean we've got to put a little more work on the employees that we have today. Recognizing and appreciating those folks for taking on that extra work goes a long way. Employees get more motivated and committed to the organization when they're recognized. So having loyalty and retention of employees is critical, and it's hard to do that. So we say like 2 to 3 years of retaining an employee, and obviously it depends on the position and the industry and all of that. That's a long time now. So it's not the norm to see the folks that have been with companies for 5, 10, 15 years anymore. So if we're recognizing employees, that might help enhance their loyalty and job satisfaction. And when we have folks that are appreciated and they're happier in their roles, it's less work in training new employees. We know that motivated and satisfied employees are actually more productive. There's actually some research out there. Gallup did a recognition survey recently, and they found that employees who feel recognized are more likely to stay with their current employer. And they also found that employees who don't feel recognized are twice as likely to quit in the next year. That's a pretty big statistic there. So something to think about in terms of how are we feeling about the recognition programs that we have for our employees here. There was also a report by the O.C. Tanner Global Culture Report, and that report shared that 79% of employees who quit their jobs cite a lack of appreciation as a primary reason for leaving. And then in contrast to that, organizations that had stronger recognition programs actually had lower turnover rates. So it's obvious that recognition plays a really important role in improving job satisfaction and engagement and employees' overall performance, which actually contributes to higher retention rates and happier customers, which is something that we all want. If you're thinking about implementing a recognition program, here are some ideas, some things to think about on this next slide. It can be as simple as Employee of the Month. I think there's a lot of organizations that used to do that, have maybe gone away from it, but I think that it can be meaningful, especially when it's tied to actual contributions that employees are having and not just a popularity contest. There's also things to think about in terms of peer recognition. So we want it to be personalized to your organization, but empowering employees to recognize one another can actually go a really long way. We've got to understand what each employee values the most. Some people like public recognition. Other folks would just cringe if they got nominated for something inside of a company-wide meeting. So you want to understand your employees, and inside of your onboarding process, really get a sense between manager and employee of what is meaningful the most. I love celebrating milestones and achievements. So employees who are getting certified, employees who are moving up in the organization, being promoted, and also retention milestones, I think goes a long way. Some companies do parties to celebrate that, certificates. I just think a personalized note from a leader to an employee in an organization can be really meaningful. I've got a whole stack of the cards that I've received here over the years. And sometimes when you're having a down day, it's nice to be able to look back through that and know that you were really appreciated. Here's a few other ideas. So peer recognition, whether that's employees doing some type of formal recognition or empowering employees to recognize one another publicly, can go a long way. We have a program here at Xenium. We call them WOW cards. All of our core values are listed, and employees can use an online form to nominate their peers. It can be nominations above, laterally, all over the place. And they pick one of the core values, and then they write a little something about why that person was awesome. So I think that goes a long way. We actually share that in our all team meetings every month. And then once a quarter, we record a video where our president and a few other people from the team read every single one aloud. So as you're working, you can listen to that video and hear all the recognition. Monthly innovation awards is another idea. So if you are a growing company, you're looking at, building efficiencies, innovating, coming up with new things, you want to recognize and reward employees who are doing that. So I think that can go a long way. A personal development passport. This is an interesting idea where we're actually recognizing employees, and maybe there's some monetary something or extra paid time off that they might get when they're attending a certain number of workshops or conferences, or it could be that they're participating in social media for the company. So posting on LinkedIn or liking posts on social media, that type of thing could be an interesting way to reward and recognize employees. I think culture champions are important. So if you've got employees within your company who are really consistently embodying the company's core values, we want to celebrate those employees. We found a way to do that through our WOW cards. It actually helps employees to remember what the actual core values of the company are, but providing folks with special perks. So maybe you get a certain number of those things, and then you can turn it in for time off. We can turn it in for Stoller wine. So you can come up with something that's meaningful for your group, but I think that's an interesting idea too. And then a mentoring program, creating a program where your experienced employees can pass their knowledge and skills on to younger employees makes a difference. It's actually beneficial on both sides. There's research that supports that. So I think overall, if you're not doing anything for recognition, few ideas here. You want it to be meaningful for your group, but recognition and appreciation goes a really long way. We all like being told thank you. So we can do that as leaders and business owners too.
All right, our fourth strategy that we're going to talk about is work-life balance and flexibility. And in today's fast-paced and just demanding professional landscape, achieving a healthy work-life balance is more important than ever. That's really what employees are needing and looking for. And it's a fundamental aspect of employee well-being and overall job satisfaction, which leads to retention, right? Which is the goal here. And so while remote work is often associated with what provides flexibility, it's actually really important to understand that creating work-life balance doesn't exclusively rely on just providing remote work options, right? So you can offer a lot of other alternatives to remote work that still provides flexibility to your employees and supports them in maintaining a positive work-life balance. And so we have some 5 ideas listed here for you on the right of the slide. The first being flexible work hours in general. So you can still provide your employees with flexibility by allowing them to adjust their daily working hours to better align with their personal commitments and preferences. So, for example, someone may prefer to start and end work a little earlier or start and end a little bit later to accommodate their family needs or to avoid rush hour traffic that they might run into when they're commuting to work every day. So that is a way to provide flexibility. Another is to offer compressed work weeks. So offer the option for employees to work longer hours on fewer days per week. So for example, working 4 10-hour days. So that way they've got a 3-day weekend or a longer period of time to do their personal commitments. And this arrangement can really provide that extra time for them. And it doesn't mean you have to close your operations on one day either, right? You can kind of arrange your schedules in a way that you have appropriate coverage, but you're still allowing employees that extra day of personal time or that greater flexibility. A third option could be providing more breaks, right? In the state of Oregon, as well as many other states, there are requirements that we have to provide our hourly employees with break time. But what's to say you can't offer greater flexibility and more breaks throughout the day to kind of break things up and allow people to take care of personal commitments or have more time to really kind of rest and relax and recover before returning and being able to perform at their best. So that's a way to provide that added flexibility as well by encouraging just more frequent breaks throughout the day to reduce stress and improve their work-life balance in that way. Job sharing is another consideration that you could think of. That provides more flexibility as well. If you have employees that, during COVID, let's say they decided they could only work part-time because they needed to take care of children, or they have other commitments and that only is allowing them to work part-time, job sharing is a great option to really retain that knowledge and that top talent in your organization by allowing them to work part-time, and maybe another person also needs to work part-time, and you can have that job sharing where you're still getting a full-time headcount or time of splitting that job, but allowing those top talent to have that flexibility as well and job share in that way. And then the fifth one I have here is offering a more relaxed dress code. So I think a lot of what we hear in terms of what people enjoy about remote work too is wearing pajama pants while also having a professional top and being able to still get their work done and engage with clients or the customers that you're serving. And so traditionally, in-person work environments have required that people, dress very professionally in suit and tie, or you might have certain dress code arrangements, and really reflecting on, is that still a requirement of the position, right? Can we allow employees to wear jeans or t-shirts or more comfortable dress code and still be able to be productive and get their work done by allowing them to just reduce the time required to just get ready for work in the morning and come into work, and just feel more comfortable while they're working as well.
Nicole, just add some commentary on
Yeah.
that. Xenium, for all of historical, suit and tie,
Yeah,
very
that's
professional.
true.
Pandemic happened and we very much relaxed that. And I will tell you this,
Yeah.
productivity is not lost. So you're right.
Right. I would argue it even improved, right? When you're more
Yes.
comfortable in your work environment, it has a huge impact. So I'm very happy about the allow to wear jeans now and all that fun stuff. So and so our fifth strategy, this really is a great segue into our fifth strategy, which really is focusing on the work environment. So an employee's physical work environment really has a profound influence on the employee satisfaction and retention. And so generally we enjoy our homes, right, or where we're living. And so we're able to have that satisfaction, or remote workers are able to have that satisfaction. So it's really important to have a thoughtfully designed office environment that's really going to enhance the work environment overall. So thoughtfully design the office by investing in a functional workspace, right? So reflecting on what are the ergonomic furnishings, ample natural light, and spaces for collaboration to really foster that sense of comfort and engagement. And really that kind of surroundings really positively impacts the well-being and productivity and overall job satisfaction of your staff when you're able to adapt to the changing physical needs of the workplace and invest in that type of workspace. So some creative ideas that we have related to this is just really allow personalized workstations or offices to make employees feel more comfortable and motivated to come in. I know, at my desk in the office, I am a big Taylor Swift fan, so I have some kind of Taylor Swift stuff around. I'm a big Office fan, so I've kind of got some quotes from The Office that I really love, and it just makes me feel more comfortable in my space. I have a sense of ownership and pride in my work environment, and it really impacts my ability to perform my job better, knowing that I feel more comfortable and I'm able to really focus solely on my work. Also, a well-designed workplace can enhance the company's brand image, making it more attractive to both customers and potential employees, right? If they see a work environment that's representative of the employees that you have or the customers that you serve and that diversity, it can really create a tangible representation of the organization's brand and their values as well. And so creating psychological safety at work is also something that I want to talk about, because physical and psychological safety are, just as important as just personalizing the workplace, right? It's essential, especially when you're requiring people to come into the office, right? People want to know that they're safe in their work environment, that we value what they have to say, and that there's physical safety. We're protecting our employees from accidents or injuries within their work environment, and adding measures and safety protocols such as ergonomic design and anything else that's going to really make them feel safe and comfortable, because both aspects are essential for employee well-being and productivity. So one is you want to create feedback channels for employees and act on their suggestions, right? If we're asking employees for their feedback, we want to actually take that and use it and act on those suggestions when feasible to just demonstrate our commitment to their safety and well-being. Also encourage the formation of employee resource groups or affinity groups that are allowing employees with common interest, backgrounds to really connect and advocate for their needs. We want to create a culture that values diversity, equity, and inclusion as well, and celebrate employees with different backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives, because that can really enrich communication and problem solving and just foster that sense of psychological safety in the workplace. And then the last item here is organized team building activities. Those can really foster trust and camaraderie among the team, and they can break down barriers and just encourage open communication for the team overall. I know recently we had an HR retreat where we did a lot of team building activities of showing like baby pictures and being able to connect with each other on a very personal level. And it really creates a sense of that safety and that psychological safety in the work that can really lead to retention, improve retention overall. So I'll leave it at that and hand it over to Brandon to talk through some Q&A.
I will jump back in. We're in this great. We're like right on time. So this is perfect. We got up to 20 minutes for Q&A here. So feel free to submit some questions. And we actually have a great question. It's going to be broad, so you're going to have to think through what you just said. A lot of this applies really easily to office type jobs, but when you consider a production environment where it's a repetitive cycle of work, you probably have to wear uniforms and PPE and stuff like that. So there's a lot of these things don't apply to an environment like that. How can we apply some of these things to that environment? Lacey, I think you're muted.
Oh yeah, Lacey, you're muted, but I'll let you go first then.
Okay. Story of my life with the mute button, folks. I think it's relatable. I mean, I think about, I actually, I appreciate this question because I actually have quite a few manufacturing clients. And so this is a real struggle. And through the pandemic was a really challenging issue because those folks had to come in and it was dangerous to be coming in. Folks were scared. And so I think about, the ability to provide flexible schedules is actually a competitive advantage. So if you think about a production environment where, most of the time those schedules look like a day swing and grave, and it's 7 to 3, 3 to 12, 12 to 7. And I think about, how can we flex? Obviously you have to have coverage. If you want machines running 24/7, then we need operators standing at machines. And I really appreciate that. But if there's a way to find some flex in there for the folks, let's say on a day shift, who maybe want to work 9 to 5, like the more traditional office schedule, I think that it's possible to do that. And I have a client that actually does a really good job of it. I know it's challenging on the supervisors to have, such random schedules, but I think you have the ability to do that. I also think there are ways to create that kind of home-like environment by having the lunches that you talked about, Nicole, or having readily accessible snacks. So one of my clients actually has the Avanti market. So employees can, some of it is they purchase their own food, but it's like fresh food, not just, vending machine with, Snickers bars, although that goes a long way too. But I think there are ways to incorporate some of this. The compensation that Nicole talked about, that applies to everybody. Benchmark is important regardless. But I think we can get a little bit creative with the schedules. I don't know, Nicole.
Yeah.
Anything that you might add that you've seen is cool?
Yeah, I think you hit it spot on there. I think, the key is just being creative, right? Some of the strategies and ideas that we shared, right? You're going to have to get creative and modify that to meet your unique industry. And I think everything Lacey just shared about how can we get flexible? We may not be able to do this exact schedule or this exact way, but how can we provide flexibility to this person? How can we meet their needs in the best way possible? And I think that employee survey, I think that's one that's really important to me and near and dear to my heart, because I truly believe that if you don't ask, you're never going to know, right? Or if you don't explore the possibilities, you're not going to know. And so by asking employees, like, what are some ways that we can increase flexibility for you? And of course, you're going to get some that are like, 3-day weekends all the time and all this free stuff, right? But you're also going to get really creative ideas that you've never even considered before, that you might look at and say, okay, that might actually work, or I hadn't thought about that before. Let's see how we might be able to do this. So you have a wealth of knowledge and information in your employees. And by just asking the question and engaging with them, whether that's in direct one-on-one conversations with your team or in conducting like an overarching employee survey and gathering anonymous feedback, I think you're going to get a lot of ideas that maybe you hadn't considered that you could explore implementing.
Mm-hmm. I had a thought while you were talking, Nicole, about like the stipends that many employers are giving for remote workers to buy office equipment. What if we did something like that for in-person folks, and it was more around like company swag? Like, you get t-shirts to wear on the production floor. We're gonna buy you actually some nice safety glasses, because some of those cheap ones are really uncomfortable to wear. Maybe we're gonna offer steel-toed boots. We've got a boot stipend or something, or we do something like shoes for crews, I think is what it's called, where you can get a discount on shoes for your employee base. But I feel like you could be creative with it. And there's even employee recognition programs that people can do from apps on their phone. So I have a client that implemented a program called Gusto, or Gusto, I'm not sure. It's Guusto, and it's like an online recognition. There's actually budgets, so employees can give gift cards to each other. You set limits to it. But I think, we've, even in a production environment, employees are pretty savvy. They're running really complicated machines. And I think they could figure that out. Even if you created a kiosk, maybe they don't sit at a computer desk, but there's a kiosk that they could use to do that.
Or an iPad that's shared or something.
Right.
Some good ideas. And we had a couple of people that were like, thank you for asking that question, because they must be in a production environment. So I totally get that. Earlier, we were talking about career pathing. And so this is actually a question that I have for you, because I think we're in a weird environment right now where we were seeing the Great Resignation. And I think people are a little uncertain about the future economically, and maybe businesses aren't performing at the level they were before. So people are staying. At least I'm seeing that. I don't know if you two are seeing that with clients, but so people are hunkering down. And when you have people staying and there's not a huge amount of turnover, the opportunities for people to rise up is not happening at the clip it probably was. So how do you create career pathing opportunities when you have stagnant growth and no turnover?
That's a great question.
Don't jump out at once.
I think being open and honest and transparent with your employees about that is really important, right? We don't want to make promises to employees that isn't the reality or doesn't align with what's actually happening in our business or our workforce, right? So I think having that open and honest conversation of we don't have this maybe position that you're looking for available or that direct opportunity now, but what are some things that we can do now to get you ready for if and when that opportunity does come up, right? What additional training or skills or certification or any of those things that we can support you in obtaining, so that if and when that position does become available, or that next step is available, you are ready to just seamlessly take that on and transition to it. If they're really craving more responsibilities or leadership now, is there that coaching or mentorship opportunity where you can pair them with somebody to really intricately understand that role, be mentored and supported, and still feel like they're growing and developing, while there may not be another formal position or title for them right there in that moment. So Lacey, I think you were going to add something too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we overcomplicate career pathing sometimes, and think we need to have really big fancy matrices, and I think sometimes that does fit an organization, but sometimes employees, just to your point, Nicole, want to expand their skill set or contribute at a higher level. And I don't know many organizations that have working managers that have a lot of spare time. So there's a lot on leaders' plates. So how can we get employees excited about, invested in, participating in committees and groups that expand their skills, build loyalty to the organization, and really prepare them for that next level role? I've also seen some of my production environment clients do kind of a staggered compensation plan based on the number of machines that employees are competent in running, and also whether employees are able to be overseeing quality. So can they QC parts for their coworkers? Are they trained in all of the different machines within the building? I think that's an interesting way to look at career pathing and proficiency, and also creating lead positions, even below supervisors. I think that can go a long way along with that mentorship buddy type program. So I think you can get creative. I don't think that we can say we just have no turnover and there's never positions in leadership, so sorry, you might outgrow this organization. I think that's I just don't think that's realistic, unless you're happy having turnover, because I think that's what would happen if that was our philosophy.
Yeah. And also I feel like my experience working in HR too is a lot of times when someone is promoted into that management role, right, they have never been a manager before, or they were really great at their job, and then they just get promoted into this management role and maybe hadn't really thought about it or considered it, and then they have like a lot of catch up to do, right, or a lot of learning and a lot of things to figure out. And so I think if we can get ahead of that curve, right, of like developing people early on to be the leaders of the future, right, or to be our next manager, even when that position itself doesn't exist quite yet, the more we can get ahead of that and really support that person, the better outcomes I think the business is going to have.
That's well said. And a plug for Xenium, we've got an entire supervisory workshop curriculum. So if you're about to promote somebody into a leadership position, supervisory position, whatever, get ahead of it and enroll them into Xenium's program. Okay, this next question, I love this one. What do you believe are some of the most successful workshops for team building and improving company morale?
Mm-hmm. For me, the first one that I thought of was disc training, and
me too.
I'm a super fan. So if you're not familiar with DISC, it's an assessment-based program that each individual takes a pretty quick assessment that helps you to learn a little bit more about your own unique individual communication style and how we work together, and even things about you that are, how do you get motivated? What are things that kind of irk you and would make it difficult, for you to work with someone? So I've had a lot of success with working with clients and implementing that as part of their ongoing HR program. So during onboarding, employees take the assessment, managers get a copy of the employee's assessment. I think we always have to be careful about putting people in boxes, because that's not, it's a spectrum, right? But I think it's pretty spot on. And then using that to do training around communication, team building, finding people that have similarities, and also seeing that, like for myself, on the DISC assessment, my level of caution and attention to detail is a little bit low. So I surround myself with people like Nicole and Brandon that are very high in that area, and I have things that I'm good at that other folks on the team are not. So I think it's a good way to build teams and to use it ongoing. The like one and done team building morale stuff, in my opinion, doesn't work. I think it needs to be a part of the ongoing, routine of the organization. But I found a lot of success with DISC.
Yeah, I would love to add something here, because over the years, what I've found to be really effective in team building is exercises or some sort of workshop where you get to know people at a deeper level. And sometimes this can be very uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie, because we've done some things that it's like, okay, a view from my boat. And it's like, you're sharing things that have happened, but it connects us better. And I think that's ultimately what you're trying to build, is positive relationships built on trust. And when you have empathy and compassion for people, it's a lot easier to do work together. So I would say, try to insert that where you can. It's like I said, it stretches your capabilities a little bit more. It can be uncomfortable because not everybody wants to share.
Yeah. Yeah, I love DISC, and I think it really creates a shared understanding. And that's what you want in your activity, is some type of shared understanding that comes out of that. When we do DISC, right, we now have a shared understanding of, here's what your style is, here's what my style is, here's why it might be difficult for us to communicate sometimes, and how can we overcome that and work better together and be an effective team. So I agree, DISC is one of my favorites. Another one that I actually just did recently is strength finders. So that is another great one that I might recommend. The concept is really focused on, a lot of times we are too narrow or focused on what our weaknesses are, what we're not good at, what we need to improve upon. And really, it's better to understand what are our strengths and how can we leverage what we know our core strengths are to really be able to overcome any challenges that we have or weaknesses that we may have. So that's a lot of fun too. I recently did that, and I know I shared my results with you, Lacey, and with my leader, and had really good conversations of okay, this makes sense of what your strengths are, and this is what Lacey's strengths are, and so how can we leverage that when we work together to really further Xenium as a whole.
Yeah, one other thing I was thinking about is, I think office type professional environments, I think, do a better job of pulling people away from their work to do this kind of thing. What I find is that in a production environment, and given we've got some folks on this webinar right now that this resonates with you, I would encourage you to really think about, yes, there's a cost to having production down for periods of time, but the ROI on the backside of that, and how employees feel about the fact that you are investing in them. It's interesting, it's different, it's not standing by myself working on a machine, it's collaborative. I think it could have a really positive impact. And so even if it's an hour or two, getting away from the production floor, we're doing it on the production floor. I've done training and team building out on the shop floor before for clients. I think it goes a long way. So I challenge you to think about that differently than maybe how you are today.
Okay, we have time for one last question. Lacey, I think this is probably directed at you. You talked about the WOW card. What is that? Yeah.
So our WOW card program, love it. It's a way for employees to recognize one another based on our core values, or we even have a personal power, unique strength that employees can nominate. You type into a form online that goes to our Excite committee, our culture fun committee, collects all of those. And then once you've received a certain number of WOW cards, you can turn them in for a half day of PTO, $100 Amazon gift card, a bottle of Stoller wine. There's a few different things. So whatever's, meaningful to you. And then for folks that are comfortable with it, we share those WOW card recognitions. We actually include client shout outs too. So when a client sends an email to somebody and somebody else notices that person got a shout out, they're sharing that via the WOW card. So it's a really great program. We generally get about 20 to 40 WOW cards per month that get submitted. And it's a cool way to do cross-functional recognition and peer-to-peer recognition. So it's a fun program.
I lied. I want to do one more question. I think we have time. This is a good one.
Okay.
How often should you be providing employees with feedback, like an example, quarterly, monthly, and how often should employees be asked to give feedback on their managers?
You want to go up first?
Oh, yeah. So, I think as frequently as you can. I think every organization and industry and business is different. So I don't think there's a one size fits all of like, you should be doing it every week or every month. I think it depends on your organization, how it's set up, how many direct reports, your managers have, but as often as possible. So if you can do it, bi-weekly, weekly, monthly, then I think the more regular connection or touch points that we have with our employees, the better, because we're more involved and invested in what's going on. We're able to better support them as managers and be there for them, is really important. In terms of feedback from employees to managers, I love that question. And I think this goes back to what I said earlier in terms of like my own personal philosophy of like, if we don't ask, we'll never know, right? And so I think it's important for the manager to solicit feedback from their employee and to ask, all right, we're touching base, we're going over the work, what do you need help with? What do you need support with? And then asking, do you have any feedback for me? Is there anything I can do in my role to better support you? Because again, if you don't ask, you'll never know. And the first couple times that you ask it, the manager asks it, we may not get a ton of feedback, right? The employee may be nervous or uncomfortable to share feedback, but the more that we ask and show that we're open to their feedback, like we want to hear from you, we want to engage with you, the more comfortable the employee is going to get with that question and feel like it's a safe space for them to open up and say, yeah, actually, I think we should be meeting a little bit more often, or I could do with a little bit more support, or yeah, this new policy that you implemented, like it's really not working for me, or like there's this issue. It creates that space to be able to have those types of conversations. Anything you would add to that, Lacey?
Yeah, I love everything that you said about that. So I do think there's a place for formal feedback for managers. So whether you do an annual 360 for your leadership team, or there's some way, because there are going to be some relationships where someone's going to feel comfortable to answer those questions. And there's going to be times where someone may not be, particularly for a leader that's not performing. So I like the idea of doing it as frequent as you can, in regular one-on-ones. Building a tolerance for getting and receiving feedback is important. You got to do it a lot to build the muscle, but doing it formally, I think on an annual basis, I think is a good way to do it. I like to ask the question in my one-on-ones with people that report to me, what's one thing I could be doing to help you be more successful? And so just asking that really, really pointed. I've gotten some things that I can't do, and I've gotten some things where, yeah, we could work on that. So I think that helps.
Okay, we're at time. I want to thank both of you for presenting on this great content. Appreciate both of you. For people joining, if you want free resources, we've got our blog, we've got podcasts and webinars. The links are on the screen there. And feel free to follow us on like Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. We've got a ton of following on YouTube. We've got lots of micro videos and podcasts that go out to YouTube. So go check out all those resources. Really appreciate you for joining us today. Best of luck.